Welcome back everybody, I hope you missed me as much as I missed you all. We are back finally with Wilds of Eldraine. We start off with our fairies because I tried a lot of many different builds and I think Fairies have the potential to be a solid tier 2 deck with some additions of hard removal and counter spells. You see, maybe I don't run any just because I think in early access event it doesn't belong into the game. But we're gonna talk about some cards that I'm really impressed by and I think are worth crafting, but also you're gonna see them in the gameplay part. So Fairies seen a lot of support with Wild of Eldraine. We had already some amazing Fairies, for example with our Fairy Mastermind or of course with our Hello Forager. But the card that I'm mostly impressed by, and with this deck I went undefeated 5-0 so far, but as I said it doesn't represent anything because it's an early access event, everybody tries something. But with our Talion, the Kindly Lord, the 4 mana 3/4 is a very impressive card I found where the opponent has difficulties to play around it, even with removals, because at the end what it does, it's a flyer 3/4 and it says whenever it enters the battlefield we choose a number between 1 and 10. You will see it in the gameplay part. Amazingly how it's done, it's basically similar how you apply any sort of numbers or counters, and then whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value, power, toughness equal to the chosen number, the player loses 2 life and we draw a card. So of course draining our opponent is one of my favorite way, but what it means is whenever we call a number, let's say it's 4, often I call for 3, or if I suspect a removal spell for 2, for example, like go for Throat or Grasp, of course it replaces itself with an additional card and we get a drain effect. This is the minimum that we get out, but the maximum we can really get out if we have the ability to see our opponent's hand. This is where Ego Drain, a 1 mana sorcery, comes into play. An amazing spell where we can look at opponent's hand and choose a non-land card, so any card, creature, spells or whatever, and then that player discards this card, and if we don't control a fairy we exile a card from our hand. So there is the trick that we really need to have at least 1 fairy, better 2 if opponent has mana open, because sometimes I can remove the fairy so we are forced to discard a card too or to exile a card from our hand. But otherwise Ego Drain is really great synergy here with our Talion. This is why I also run 2 Hello Forger, because we have the ability to pay X and to get back one of our spells with mana value X, and you see all our spells, I don't run any hard removals, don't run any counter spells or anything else. Is Ego Drain 1 mana and our Fairy Fence that says X and a black for an instant spell, and target creature gets -X until end of turn, and if we control a fairy it gets an additional -3/-3. We can easily cast it for 1 mana if we have fairies and kill a creature with -3/-3 effect, but also Sheoldred for 3 mana to remove is not a big deal. I think it's a good value here on this card. The card I'm mostly disappointed with is really the Rowdy Research, a 7 mana instant that says this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that attack this turn. So important to understand, this is not only your creatures that attack this turn. If your opponent has a wider board, for example against reds, this card is amazing because if they attack you with 6 reds it's 6 damage to your face most likely, but then it's an instant spell, you cast it on opponent's turn and you draw 3 cards. So this is a great idea. In the head it works great, but actually on the battlefield I rarely had the chance to draw really 3 cards for let's say less than 3 mana. Usually I pay 3 or 4 mana to draw 3 cards. This is why I reduce it to just 1. I think in a red deck this card will be a really amazing way to refill your hand, to give you a little bit more juice, but in a fairy deck I think this is maybe something that can be easily replaced. And the carrier of this deck is our Talion's Messenger, 3 mana 1/3 flyers, is whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, so if you attack with 5 creatures it doesn't matter, it still trigger once. We draw a card and then we discard a card, and when you discard a card we put a 1/1 counter on target fairy you control, so on anyone, usually on Talion's Messenger, because it's a great way to have a big blocker in the air. It will be a 2/4 suddenly, and mono red and other aggro decks have really hard time to get past it. But then later on it's just a card selection, card filtering, because we're running a drain synergy in this deck with all our drain abilities, of course with our Talion, but also with our Obura Dreaming Duelist, a 2 mana flash flyer, so it has flash. We can play it on opponent's turn, and whenever another fairy enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. 1 life seems not too big, but with a little bit of damage, with this small cuts that we do to our opponent, it can really decide the games or decide the way if our opponent gonna attack or not, because they are already on a life total where it's dangerous. Maybe I can double spell fairies, and to get sure that we draw our fairies, we have here also 3 copies of Likeness Looter, a card that I'm actually not super impressed by, but here in this early access event I'm really surprised by the performance of it. Is a 2-mana 1/1 flyer and says tap, draw a card and discard a card. So it's a tap ability. We need to wait until the Summoning Sicknesses is away. Again, card selection, we can put out our cards that we maybe don't need and draw something that we really like to drain our opponent and to get some extra value out of it. And then for X without tapping, so we can instantly activate it in the late game if we need to. We can make Likeness Looter to another creature that is in our graveyard. So if opponent had dealt before with our Fairy Mastermind or with our Sleep Cursed Fairy, a 1-mana 3/3, an amazing creature so far I found, but also it has Pseudo Vigilance, so we can untap it for 2 mana. At the beginning we remove just the stun counter, because whenever it enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield with 3 stun counter on it, and then for 2 mana we can untap it, and as long as the stun counters are on it, we are removing the stun counters. But then later on, of course, a flyer, 3/3 flyer for 1 mana with Ward 2 is a really great value that we get here. And instead of removal, I decided to go with more tapping my opponent's creature, because usually the tempo game against mono red and mono white I can win by just simply tapping the opponent's creature to give me the time that is necessary to just provide enough damage, enough value to finish out the game before my opponent can really kill me. And this is where Snare Master Spirit, a 1-mana 1/1, comes into play, because it's a fly and it says whenever it enters the battlefield, if we pay an additional 2, then we can tap target creature and opponent control and put a stun counter on it. So we take the creature for full 2 turns out of the game, and this is often a game changer, especially against creature heavy matchups, where it's really helpful. For the mana base, I tried to go a little bit more tempo-ish approach, so I want to draw more creatures than lands. This is why I decided to go with 23 lands. But I think if we are trying to go with this deck a little bit more in the solid tier 2 phase, we need to go on 24 lands, and we need to play counter spells, we need to play some hard removals, and maybe a little bit more interaction with the board. But so far for early access, I'm really happy with this deck. This is why let's go and check it out, how it performs in the gameplay, so you see maybe some cool synergies. Alright, here we are in our first game against Keikodama, and this hand, we go first. Eldraine go first is not something I'm really excited, but the flash creature followed up by Eldraine I think is something can be worth trying, so let's try it. Let's open with an island, see what my opponent is playing. Our Keikodama, Italy, Primal Storm, cool sleeves, I like it. Looks like a mono red opponent. This is actually not bad, so let's see what he has else to offer. It has menace, so I cannot surprise it by attacking it. Let's my opponent attack and see. Whenever this going to put it on it, then you may sacrifice it if you do deal X, top X cards of your library. X is the number of counters on it. You may play those cards this turn. So it's not draw cards, so it makes no sense to play Fairy Mastermind. So opponent putting a counter on it, most likely has a removal in the hand. This is why we gonna see if we can now I wanna play, I think, the Looter. Yeah, so let's go with the Looter. Let's get in for 2 damage. Let's play the Looter just for the sake of it, and then we drain our opponent, and then we gonna still get some damage done to ourselves, but see what my opponent is up to with Eldraine. If he has some removal, he will use it most likely now. No, he's gonna draw some cards, okay. A lot of cards that I don't know. And you are a problem. He has 2 lands though, so it's 4 mana. You are double green. You have green here. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Exile a creature of more than put some bottom of the library. You may cast exile card at the beginning of the next combat phase. Face target creature control deal damage, so he will fight me with this spell. Then let's get rid of this one. We don't want him to fight me. And next turn with our Talents Messenger we can start getting a little bit bigger and get some looter effect. This card is really powerful. Charming Scoundrel, I play against a lot of mono red deck. It looks like nothing to mana 1/1, but in the end, I know you. He's constantly growing. Ooh. Okay. So I would say let's play you. Next, let's attack with you. Another Painland. Nope. Let's put you here. Next. And end the turn. One blue mana unspent, so theoretically I could have used a looter to see if I draw maybe something for 1 mana. Udama, okay. Okay, nice. Sure. Okay. My opponent goes all in here. 1 red mana open, but I don't see anything. Sure. Don't really see anything that my opponent could have played there. And currently I'm a little bit shaky about my life total, to be honest, with so many Painlands. But we're gonna still loot with our looter, of course, to see if we maybe can exchange our Bureau to something else. And play the 4 mana, this Obere, I think it calls, for number 2 will be amazing here. Because not only it will drain my opponent for a lot, but also give us a lot of possibilities. Not sure what my opponent is trying to do here, or counting. This card I don't see, right, so it can be something. Okay. This will still not kill it. A royalty token. And this is actually not bad. Still not kill it. Ooh. So let's do it for 0. Confirm 0. Take care of the Kodama. Then attack with Bura. Oh, this is good. This is good. But I think a 3/1 body is better here. Put a counter here on you. And I'm not really planning to play anything from the graveyard right now, so let's bring the Hell of Furniture out now. Decline. Don't have anything. We don't have anything to get out of there. Okay. Let's double block it. To not give my opponent more card advantage. Okay, all the 2-drops are out. So we're gonna see another Mastermind. Is not something I'm really excited about. But let's attack. Nope. Let's put the counter on a Bureau to be again on even. Those odd numbers are not something we want. And then I'm gonna go for 2, because my opponent mostly played 2. So here you see maybe I can choose, like I explained in the intro, between 1 and 10. We're gonna choose 2. And now whatever my opponents play with mana value, toughness or power or so on of 2, I will be able to draw a card and drain my opponent for a little bit. Okay, Kodama had enough. Most likely he understood what's up. So my opponent at 7 with the Fairy Mastermind at 6, plus here and drain to 4. So most likely next turn my opponent would have been dead with the setup here. But you see maybe how Talion is amazingly closing out the game. We don't see his hand, but we saw a lot of 2 drops, 2 mana drops, but also creatures with power 2 in his graveyard. We see it here. Where is it? Here with power 2, so we would have drawn cards from each of it and drain our opponent. And this is an effect that is not triggered by once each turn, it triggered whenever, right? So if I would have played Talion a little bit earlier, the druid that he played and also this charming scoundrel will both drain him for 2, so altogether for 4, and I would have drawn 2 cards. So I think this card has the potential to be in a lot of different builds or different decks. But let's go next. And here we are against Mashiloi 8. We go first. We have a 1-drop. If it gets removed, I'm done, so right. I think this is a hand. This is not a hand I can keep by going first. This is a much better hand. So let's keep this. Let's put a Mastermind to the bottom, play our Cursed Fairy out and start ticking away the stun counters. See if... Okay. Opponent looks something boorish, and the matchmaker puts me a lot against creature matchups or aggro matchups. That is actually pretty good for us. Looks like maybe Naya Exile with Pia. I also was trying to build it because of the adventure part. Adventure is an exile spell. Parts of your life, but it's just an exile effect, no? This is just an exile spell, but okay. Okay. Comes as it goes. Yeah, end the turn. We can turn our sleep cursed fairy the next upkeep. By the way, my controls are not here, game. I think that it will hold a priority anyway for me, so I don't need to be worried about it. Yeah, this is definitely a Pia deck. Let's see in what direction he wants to go. I'm not worried about the Mastermind because Pia will produce a lot of Topters. Pass. So we need to deal with Pia now. If we get rid of Pia, the deck will fall apart, right? And you see, maybe I can just show you that it removes the stun counter instead of untapping the creature, even though it says untap it. But now it has a pseudo vigilance, let's say, that we can abuse a little bit. Because we don't have anything here to remove, right? Yeah, I need a removal spell. So now my opponent has hard time to attack or to block, because we have 2 3/3 flyers in the air, the one will tick down. And we also have our Mastermind just in case my opponent finds a way to draw an extra card or some extra cards. We can try to close it out. The Mashiloi 8, but we saw already in the exile many of 1-drops. Here 2 drops, so maybe I will call it for 2, yeah, because it looks like there is a lot of 2s. Sure, my friend. And I think this deck, this Naya Adventure deck, has also the possibility, but I think it needs to be played a little bit differently. But we're gonna see what we're gonna build together as soon as the set releases. Okay. Okay. Next. Because Rocco fits also really good in this setup, right? So a lot of card draw, a lot of things. The Looter, you say, huh? Okay. Opponent is a little bit scared for his life total. Interesting. Let's play the Looter. Looter could have instantly become our Fairy Mastermind, but I'm here just to find maybe our 4-drop, maybe something else. We're gonna see. Opponent has a bunch of things to play, a bunch of things to exile, another exile spell, so currently my opponent plays only from exile. That is obviously okay. But because of the activation threat of our Sleep Cursed, I'm threatening to untap it, and for example, he's not able to attack with Pia, right? Ooh, this is also a nice card. Aren't equal to the number of non-land permanents you control. So it's a 5/5 now. Okay. Sure. No. Pass. Then let's remove here the counter. Ooh. Like this, you say, huh? Give me a second. How do we do that? Another land? I need a removal for the Pia thing, you know? So let's see if we can top deck a removal. Spite. Not really. Put here. Next. Spite is not really what I was looking for, but is okay. Next. Can we find something? Ah, yeah, another one, huh? Okay. Okay. I'm looking for a removal spell, just in case you're wondering what I'm looting for on sorcery speed, because usually I like to activate it on the slower side. But Spite is a good chumpy, and as soon as we have dealt... Oh, okay. That's nice. So this will be maybe even our first defeat. Yeah. And my opponent had here all the answers that he had needed. And this is a good game. Definitely a good game. Maybe not in time with a removal spell, but... also not a big deal, not a problem. Anyway, this is the first defeat I had, so we are currently 6-1 or something, but as I said, no representation of nothingness. I just wanted to show you the deck and the ability. I think I showed you the majority that I want to see. You had discard spell, you had 4 mana drop that locks out the games or prevent my opponent for having free spells. So yeah, I think Fairies have the chance really to play a solid tier 2 deck, and this is it so far for this video. Next I want to try to make some reds maybe work for you, so wait for the next few days. I think tomorrow I should be able to upload it. Depends how much I can record, but nonetheless, thank you for your time. I'm glad to be back. I'm hoping to read you in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next one. Ciao.